Broadcasting from Boston, Massachusetts, you're listening to the Technology Equals Equality podcast.
Hey, welcome back to the Technology Equals Equality podcast. I'm your host, Lori Brooks, and this is episode 39. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Wendy Fry. Wendy is author of Find You, Find Love, and co-author of Dialogue Guru series. Wendy is a coach, a hypnotherapist, and practitioner with qualifications in NLP, emotional freedom therapy, and picture tapping technique. Wendy's company, Be Positive, offers you the support, guidance, and motivation to move on from the past and work through your own personal life, health, and relationship difficulties. So, Wendy, welcome and thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're truly excited to have you here. Tell us a story of how it is you once saw the future before you decided to begin branding yourself and your business, becoming a therapist and working with patients. What was it that you saw yourself doing?
It's a fabulous question because I think if I'm really honest, way back in high school there was a range of different things that I was going to go into, and actually my family sort of situation changed back in high school. So what I intended to do never actually happened, and I went through what I call the motions of just doing a job to have an income that wasn't particularly at that time inspiring or anything that I could progress to. And it actually wasn't until, so I'm 48, almost 49 at the moment, and it probably wasn't, if I'm honest, until about my 30s that I decided I wanted to do more with my life and that I actually wasn't using my full potential. So, when you say the question, tell me a story of how you saw your future before you started branding, it was almost as if I felt my future before I saw it. So I remember sitting on a beach in Wales, which is here in the UK. It's a beautiful area, beautiful part of the world, and the beaches are quite sort of remote and open. And it gave me a lot of sort of thinking space and a lot of feeling space. And I can just remember sitting on this beach reading a book, and it was actually about life coaching. And as I was reading this book, I thought, hang on a minute, I'm already doing this. This is what I need to do. And the book, I literally highlighted the whole thing because I was so inspired by it. And literally, as soon as I got back off holiday, I'm looking at all the different coaching training courses. I'd done like a weekend thing, and then I found the right training for me. And I went on and trained to be a coach, and everything. It's a little bit like at the start of the show when we were talking about your business and how as entrepreneurs we all grow and expand. Things just seem to build on that. So that was my foundation sort of coaching, and then later on the next few years I went on to train as a future life progressionist, and it's basically going into your future so you can experience that visually or feeling or hearing. When I was going through this future life progression, I actually saw myself speaking from stage. I even saw the tartan curtains behind me. I saw myself holding a red book, and I was like, "What's this all about?" Because I wasn't a speaker, hadn't written a book, and I was like, "Oh, okay, so this is part of my future." And I'm really happy to say, we're in 2015 now, and at the start of this year in January, I was invited to speak at an event in front of about 80 people. When I got into the room that I was speaking, there were the tartan curtains. I'd written my book. I self-published September, sort of almost this time last year. I self-published my first book. So, my future for me, or what I'm doing now, it didn't begin in thinking, as my teens, I want to be a therapist. In my teens, actually, I was very much a helper. I was helping my family get through different things. So perhaps at that time, I was already in that helping role, obviously not in a paid role. But it's a skill that I have that comes naturally to be able to assess other people's needs, to support them. And I'm really happy that my future is becoming ever clearer.
Awesome. And I'd love to take it back for just a minute because what I really think was important was what you were explaining is that you started a job with an income and you were really helping family. But through the strength that you already had, And through having read this life coaching book while you happen to go away on holiday, on vacation for some time, you really recognized, you know what, these are skills that I have. This is what I do. You recognized your natural talents through just taking a step back.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's really, really, really what it takes to recognize what your future could be. It takes the time to stop and just think and focus on you, and not necessarily, reading a life coaching book for everyone, but for you in particular that really worked. And for other people, sometimes it's when you're watching a movie, you're walking down the street, or reading a book, but just kind of stopping and taking a moment to take that step back can really, really be important. And Wendy, I love how you detailed those first couple of steps that you took, really kind of delving into, once you came back from your vacation, kind of looking at the coaching and training programs that you could get involved with to enhance those natural abilities that you had, so that you could begin taking those steps to lay out the future that you had now begun envisioning for yourself. What do you feel was one of the most difficult parts of becoming an entrepreneur? What do you feel was the hardest part of taking those first couple of steps once you realized these are my strengths and I really want to pursue this passion?
I got to admit that it was it was totally scary. I had little financial backing, and in the area that I was working in at the time, my contract was running from one year to the next, and although I loved the job, it was pretty low paid. I had no idea in the January if I was going back in the September. And I really just had to, what I call, like, fly by the seat of my pants, because I thought, here I am, I'm doing a day job, I'm trying to run a business alongside it. And although I had what I call other people's opinions by saying, well, it's very competitive out there, and why don't you get a real job, and why do you want to help people and listen to people's problems all the time? One of the hardest things was, if you like, taking a chance on me, actually fully stepping into my power, totally believing I can make this work, putting boundaries into place with other people, so letting them know, actually, I'm not going to be available, I'm studying, I'm giving up my day job, I'm working, and actually finding out new ways. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, and it was actually finding out what works, what doesn't work, taking action every single day to expand, my business, to go on other training courses and develop myself so I can help people. So I'd say, one of the hardest things was taking that risk and facing the fear and doing it anyway. Continuing, even though things have been hard and there have been ups and downs, and sort of other people, well-meaning people, have said, well, why don't you go back to an employed job for a while, and and I was just like, no, this isn't what I want to do, and I am going to make it work. So, the hardest steps was just overcoming the obstacles. As and when the obstacles came up, it might have all for about 5 seconds floored me, and then I'm like, no, I'm going to make this work. So it's just staying true in my own power and resilience.
Certainly, 100%. Mindset is so key to success. If your mindset is not in a positive place, in a determined place, where you know you're going to do this no matter what, and you set your mind to that, and that's really what I think, a lot of this boils down to when it comes to talking about an entrepreneurial journey. If you set your mind to doing something, and you have the willpower to back you on doing that, no matter what comes up, you'll find a way to get through it if you believe in yourself and believe in what it is you're attempting to accomplish. Awesome, Wendy. So you were mentioning your very first book. I believe that is Find You, Find Love.
Yes, that's right. Find You, Find Love. It gets to the heart of your love and relationships using EFT. So the emotional freedom technique is, some people might have heard of it as tapping, but it's basically an energy psychology technique which you can use to work through all relationships, and not just significant other relationships. That the book is based on, sort of 12 years of my work, and there's some coaching in there, there's EFT, there's some audios and things that you can download free in connection with the book. It's an absolute joy to get it out there, and it's just another way of helping people. So if people don't want a therapist, or they don't have the finances or things like that, it's a really low cost way of helping others to help themselves.
Certainly, certainly, definitely. And I thank you so much for the copy of the book, by the way.
You're
I
welcome. My pleasure.
We will be delving into that. So I thank you, and I will, be sure to link to your website where those who are interested can go ahead and pick up a copy of the book. With the book, what did you feel was the hardest part of starting to formulate your ideas on how to lay out the book and how to present your ideas for the audience?
I don't know. I don't know if there was what I call a hard part, because the content I already knew. It's like, that it was almost like there was so much content I'm typing away, making like loads of spelling mistakes. So I think one of the hardest things was, again, writing freely about what I wanted to write about. So there's a small part in the book where I share my story at the beginning. That was probably the hardest bit, was revealing. So obviously I'm a therapist, but also revealing actually some of the experiences I went through as a teenager. Some of them very difficult and very challenging. So perhaps the hardest bit was actually allowing myself to be vulnerable, to share that information. And in fact, those early steps of going through difficulties, and then putting that into a structured way where I'm able to help the reader with the difficulties that they may experience. So there's going to be a lot of readers who are adults reading the book, but actually one of the key things in the book is getting them to reconnect with their childhood, or where their behaviours or patterns may have come through. So yeah, the hardest thing was just like sharing my truth, and obviously thinking, well, people might judge me on this, or my family might not like it. And the honesty is that the 12-year-old in me never had the voice at the time. So the 40-odd-year-old definitely wanted to speak up. So yeah, it was just again, trusting that, if I can share my truth, hopefully it will allow other people to share theirs. And there was a lot of liberation in actually writing the book, and using also as well, using the techniques on myself, the techniques that I use with clients. It wasn't just like writing a book. I've actually walked the experience, not through training, but through the experience of life.
Right, right. Do you feel that there is anything specific that you would state to an entrepreneur who's about to, embark on this journey, and they are looking at, because I feel like the book is designed for more than just finding love, like you said. I feel like it's designed more for those who are looking to enhance their own relationships across the board. So, for someone who's looking at the book and saying to themselves, you know what, I really am ready to get into an entrepreneurial journey, but they are interested in learning more about themselves, what would you suggest as being the main focus for them?
Depending on where they are. So often someone will come to me with what I call current difficulties. So if there's somebody there who's ready to go on an entrepreneurial journey, and they're thinking about starting something new, whatever it be, whether it be writing a book themselves, or setting up a business, or doing something completely random, is
Mm-hmm.
is just to whatever the blocks are. So I possibly start with, what are your blocks, what are your limiting beliefs, and what are your doubts, how are you feeling. And what I'd do is I'd actually trace back with them. So, again, all these techniques are in the book. I'd actually be tracing back with them. When was the first time you felt fear? When was the first time you had this self-doubt? When was the first time you heard somebody else say, oh, you couldn't possibly do that, you're never going to make it? And often all of these things go back to childhood, whether it's sort of before the age of 6 and 7, when we're in that stage where we're soaking up everything around us as if it's true, or again, sort of different circumstances, whether it be with parents at school, growing up, and all of those voices and all of those experiences over the years that we've had that tell us that we can't do something. So there's actually, it's a bit like I'd never written a book before. I didn't know if I could do it or if I couldn't. But the thing is, if you don't take those risks, and if you don't work through your limitations or get out of that comfort zone, the chances you're going to stay stuck where you are. So for any listeners about to go on a journey, and whatever's coming up for them, if there's like any blocks, any negative internal dialogue, just to explore when did this come from? How old were you? So some of the things that go through our mind aren't appropriate to us now. They were set in our minds, as I say, back in childhood, growing up, all these limitations, all these limiting beliefs that actually might not be true now. So it's just explore your beliefs, and actually from the book and on my website you can download a free chapter which is about beliefs, so that will very much help anyone listening just to examine their own beliefs and where they come from, and also the relationship that they have with themselves. So whether you're in business, whether it's a husband and wife relationship, a friendship, or mother and daughter, all relationships go back to the relationship you have with you. So it's strengthening your inner relationship with you have with yourself, so that you can go out in the world and do what it is you want to do.
Certainly. Understand the implementation of that block, is really key. Knowing where that began, how it began, and having the ability to move forward with that. So definitely, Wendy, thank you, thank you. And I'll be sure to, make sure that there's a link specifically to that piece from your website, so for anyone who's interested. But the show is really designed to help entrepreneurs come up with ideas for companies in an industry that they may not have thought of at all. So, Wendy, we'd love to help you, and I'd like to know, if you had a magic wand and could change anything at all in your business, what would it be and why?
Lovely question. So I have made loads of mistakes over the year with marketing. I look like literally I have. I've been talked into all sorts of things, and invested and had absolutely nothing back. Obviously, the way I look at it is it seemed like a good thing at the time. So I think, I think the learning for me, or if I had a magic wand, is to be working with someone who specifically understands my business. So, for example, I'm a hypnotherapist, a coach, NLP practitioner, loads of other what I call tools and skill sets. But if you're working with someone who doesn't really understand your message, or doesn't know how to take what it is you do and to put that into how can I explain it? So I don't know whether you call it like a sales message or a marketing message. I'm really good at what I do, and I know what I can do with ease. I can work with people in groups. I wouldn't say standing on my head, because that would be really rude, but that comes naturally to me. But actually, marketing, or whether it be pitching or saying what I want to say, where it's hooking other people in, is something I'm getting better with, because an element of that has come into the book writing. But for me, that magic wand would be, marketing better, knowing how to get it right, so that it's actually bringing a business return in.
Certainly, certainly. Having someone who understands not only marketing, but the actual in-depth story behind the story of your business, understanding why it is you're doing what you're doing and how it is you do what you do, so that they can take all of that and wrap it into a real marketing message, is very, very important. It is difficult to do on your own initially, especially if we don't have marketing backgrounds. You know what I mean? It can definitely be something that is difficult for anyone to do. I mean, you are one of many. I myself, we've all made these, marketing blunders that we could have totally avoided if we had understood marketing, and or we understood marketing ourselves, and we're able to transform that message into something for an audience. So that's a good one. I love that. We'll see if the audience can assist with that. And Wendy, please share the best way for our listeners to find you.
Yes, my website, it's www.wendyfry.com. So that's WENDY fry.com, like fry an egg. Wendyfry.com.
Wonderful. You have been outstanding. Thank you once again for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Laurie. My absolute pleasure.
Be sure to take some time to really craft your entrepreneurial journey around your own natural talents. You can reach Wendy at wendyfry.com, or you can always reach her through our show notes page at technologyequality.com/Wendy Fry. Wendy, thank you once again for joining us here this week. We truly appreciate your time and expertise. And Techie community, thank you guys for tuning in once again here for episode 39. You guys totally rock. I truly appreciate you guys tuning in week after week. If you're enjoying the show and you don't want to miss an episode, head over to iTunes, click on that subscribe button, and you will get each and every one. And while you're at it, why don't you leave us a rating and review? We'd absolutely love some feedback on the show. And until our next episode, when we continue to hear the journey, find the pain, and create solutions, enjoy the week.